Hey guys, Jerry Learns Business. Very special guest, Gwen from the Spark School. And she has a company that helps influencers. So welcome, Gwen.
Thank you, Jerry, for having me.
Absolutely. My pleasure. I wanted to learn from you because, again, I got a bunch of YouTube channels. I'm sure this conversation will benefit everyone. So, Gwen, tell me about your journey. Were you an influencer? How did you get into this kind of field?
I'm actually a marketer by trade through corporate America. That was like my thing, digital marketing, and I worked in entertainment. My last job before I started and did my own thing was actually at Awesomeness TV. So I'm very
Oh,
familiar with YouTube and YouTube production and video production. That kind of led me to create my own blog. So I started the LA Girl blog 5 years ago. So that's how I got started, just blogging. Even before I started blogging, I was on Twitter. Twitter was the cool social media platform back then before Instagram. So I was just retweeting people's articles, and I'm originally from LA, grew up here. So people would ask me, like, where should I go? Where are all the places to go? And so I would retweet things, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm sending these people to other people's sites. I should start a blog and start writing my own stuff. And so that's kind of how it came about. And then Instagram started, and I started posting photos on Instagram about food festivals, concerts, events, things to do in LA. And that's when brands started reaching out to me, offering me money to promote like their business or their service or products. And that's kind of how I started my influencer business, the LA Girl. And then it took me about 2.5 years to start making some real money, and I was able to quit my job. And then through that, people were like, how'd you do that? I want to do that too. And that's why I started the Spark School, to start helping influencers do the same thing.
I see. And for viewers wondering how I met Gwen, we follow each other on Twitter. So you see, I have this like thing about Twitter where I can never, I always talk smack about Twitter, but then I think about the two people I've connected with, right? One's Gwen, and another person I've connected with is Michael J. White for, out of all people. So I think about the use of Twitter. I'm like, maybe bulk-wise it hasn't generated as much whatever, but quality-wise, So yeah, talking to Gwen and knowing that you started out Twitter, it's like changing my perception of Twitter.
Yeah, and you just DM'd me and was like, you want to do an interview? I'm like, sure, great. And so I think it's a great way to connect with people. I think if you take out all the, the aesthetic and the photo stuff, and it's just talking, and it's just, that's where I go every day to like see what's going on. I look at what's trending every day on Twitter. And so, and I think that I've gotten some media placements there as well, because a lot of journalists and a lot of professionals are actually on Twitter. So I
Mhm.
think that it's a great place to connect with people.
Yeah. And what's interesting, I think about Twitter is that when I first started out my Twitter journey, I was the type who was like, I don't care about the quality of the people I follow. I don't care about the quality of people who follow me. I just want followers. And I think that's why for a very long time I didn't get anything out of Twitter, because I had followers, but it's not like I cared about what they tweeted about. It's not like they cared about what I tweeted about. It was literally like follow for follow, right? That's how a lot of people work Twitter. And now I'm
Right.
starting to understand more. Like Twitter's actually a really cool place. Much like on Instagram, you can build personal relationships. Twitter's another way. It's just Instagram, you kind of need pictures. Twitter, you don't have to have pictures.
Yeah, you could just retweet, and you can just comment, and like retweet with comment is my favorite thing. It's just like sharing your unique perspective in like bite-sized captions and tweets, as I like that. And it's a lot more stress-free, I think, than Instagram.
Yeah. Um, Tell me about Awesomeness TV. How long were you there for?
I was working there as a marketing director for about 2 years. And so I worked on the network side. So I worked with a lot of the creators. And that's kind of where I started being on the influencer marketing side. Before influencer marketing was a thing, we were already working with YouTubers and creators and having them create and produce content for Awesomeness TV that we would promote on our channels. And so I had the unique perspective of being on the brand side so I know what brands are looking for when they're looking for creators and influencers to work with. And as an influencer, I use that to my advantage so that I would be able to work with brands and get sponsorships and monetize my own channels. And now when I teach my influencers, I'm always telling them like the brand side and the marketing side perspective, because I know exactly what they're looking for.
Wow. I think that's such a great lesson for everyone because every job you have, there's skills you can pull for your own entrepreneurship stuff. It's like people sometimes ask, they're like, what do I start on? Well, it's like, take what skills you have and see if you can have like a unique twist to it, right? That's like the first step.
Yeah, so true, Jerry. I can tell you, like, I've had so many jobs, and I'm one of those people that I've always been an entrepreneur ever since I was a kid, but I was always taught in society that a job is like safe and you got to be stable and you got to be able to pay the bills. And what I didn't know was this was just experience for me to become a CEO and to learn all the things that I could get from all these experiences in corporations. And now when I run my business, I do believe that the reason why I was able to grow so fast was because I took all those skills and those experiences from those other jobs.
Yeah, exactly. Just a very brief kind of relating to what you're saying. I was at ByteDance, the company that bought TikTok and everything.
Yes.
So I worked on the content end. So I saw how algorithms work, how stuff was getting pushed to viewers. That's what got me to become a YouTuber, because I was like, I think I could take some of these lessons and make my YouTube channels better. And it did happen. You know, by the time I was ready to quit ByteDance, 2 of my channels were viral. So it's like exactly like what Gwen says. You take every opportunity as how to build a skill set for you becoming a better CEO if you want to be an entrepreneur, a business owner, that is.
Yeah. And then sometimes, sometimes it's good to have that experience first. And then everything that I saw that I didn't like about a company, or I was like, oh, I'm never going to do that. Or when I have a team, this is how I want to communicate. So it is all part of a learning experience. And I think that, I think we're all on a journey, and all steps leading to that is all part of it. So it's all part of a story. I always tell my students, like, no one wants to watch the movie or listen to the podcast or watch the video where, oh, I made it and it was easy. Like, that's not a story. Like, people want to know about that time where you got fired or you got let go or you were having a hard time and you bounced back. Like, there's all these challenges that come with it. And I think it just enriches the entire experience.
Exactly. So let's talk about some of the initial challenges when you started down the entrepreneurial path. Tell me about it.
Yeah, well, first of all, when I was starting my blog, of course, it's like anything. I'm sure you relate as far as like a YouTube channel. You're like, is anyone there? Is anyone watching? You're like creating all this stuff and like putting so much energy, and you're like, why do I only have 2 views? And it's probably people I know and my friends. So the content creators initial like launch is always that, right? You're always thinking, okay, is this even worth it? Is anyone even going to listen to me? Like, there's all these huge publications and blogs. There's BuzzFeed and like all these things. Why would they look at my stuff? And then as I started to gain a following and I started to get feedback from my audience and I started growing a little following, I started to realize that I did have something unique. Like, there was no other LA girl that looked at LA as an individual and as a person. And so I owned that space. So I was like, now, I knew it was going to take time, and it took a lot of effort trying to balance that and my full-time job at the same time. But I do believe that if you really want to make an impact and it's something that you're super passionate about, that you will invest that time and effort to do it. And it paid off. And when I started getting brand deals, and at first it was little bit where I was like, $50, great, $100 here, like a little bit of sponsorships. But I'm like, how am I going to eat, right, with this kind of money? And so another challenge was making sure I had a monetization plan and putting my business hat on and knowing that, okay, if I'm able to get, $1,000 worth of brand deals with 3 brands or 4 brands, I'm able to now be self-sufficient. I could quit my job. And I knew that this was something I wanted to do, and I was determined to do it for however long it took.
That is something very important too that I'm learning from Gwen. And I think this is something I want to repeat to viewers too. It's just that you have to, it's a grind, right? It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't even happen over a year. It might take 2 years. It might take 3 years. But if you really want it, you will devote the time. That's the key. So I think, Gwen, sounds like when you were, getting there, right? You basically were working 2 jobs. You were working your day job, like, and then you go home. 3 jobs. 3 jobs, exactly. Because you had, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like my business was 2 jobs, And then my day job was the job that paid the bills. But I was determined. So I would get up at 5 a.m. every day, 9 o'clock, go to work. I in LA, you know, commute is a thing and like traffic is a thing. So I moved closer to work. So I optimized my commute so I wouldn't, that hour, that could be content creation. You know, that's hour in the morning, hour at night. So I was like, I'm not willing to sacrifice, you know, that time sitting in traffic when I could be building my business. So I made a huge life change. I was like, even if I have to pay a little bit more in rent, I will stay close so that I have that time. So that's 2 hours a day. I can do a lot with 2 hours a day. That's 10 hours a week in 1 week, right? And then you can multiply that. That's 40 hours a month. So for people who are like, I don't have time, like look at the ways that you can optimize your day. And if you have to keep your job, like, is it like you work remotely and you work super, super fast? So then you can, you know, get some more of your stuff done at home when your day job stuff is done. So I had to really sacrifice that time. And then so nights and weekends also. So weekends I was shooting because, you know, I'm not going to shoot anything during the day on the weekdays. So when I was doing like Instagram shoots, I would go to events. I would do it at night. And then on weekends, I just started dating my husband at the time, and he's a partner in my business now. But he knew that like 5 a.m. we're waking up, we're working, we don't go out to date nights. And now like, you know, 5 years later after my blog, he now works in the business with me.
Wow. Wow. Before I ask you more about kind of like doing business with family, I want to again emphasize to all the viewers, man, save on commutes. That is so important. A lot of companies will actually pay bonuses for people that move close to work. So it's like, I learned it very early when I heard that companies were paying people to get close to work. Because I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur one day. Starting when I moved to LA in 2015, one of the first things I ever did was, okay, wherever I'm working, I'm going to move walking distance, at least biking distance, but preferably walking distance to work, because I saved so much money that I could devote to entrepreneurship and my own stuff. So that's something I have to emphasize that Gwen said. It's so important.
Yeah. And even now with remote work, with all of us working from home, it's like you can probably negotiate. Now is a good time to be like, if they tell you to go back, be like, oh, can I do half days, or can I only go in one day a week? And when you're at home, you can like maximize your time working on your own stuff. And then get your stuff done, your job stuff done early. I'm always one of those people, like I can get stuff done in 2 hours, what they give me 8 hours to do. So I'd be working on my own stuff the other 6 hours.
Yeah, totally. How to take the off times too. That's another good lesson. I know many people, they will get the job done in an hour. Thank goodness when I was working at ByteDance, the work we had to do was mostly like at the beginning of the hour, every hour we had a lot of work, but then you had 45 minutes of off time, kind of, right? So you could goof off, which I did, of course, but you can also try to like build stuff. So yes, there's a lot of time. People who say they don't have time, I think 10% of those people really don't have time, but 90% of those people, if you really tried, will like, you can even go to Gwen or go to someone, like pay them to consult with you. I'm sure they'll find like times that you could like built into your schedule.
Yeah, definitely. So now like I'm very aware of my time. It's because before I was doing that, and now I do this full time, and I still run 2 businesses, right? So I run my influencer business and then I run the school, but I time block. So I use Google Calendar and I have blocks of time, and like Jerry and I's stuff is here, and then my next appointment. And that's what CEOs do, right? Every hour of their time is allotted, and you can allot free time and you can allot breaks, and I move stuff around all the time, but I like to optimize my time and I like to get stuff done. And so I think for people who are struggling with trying to find time for their business or for their side hustle, look at a Google Calendar and map it out, and so you can visually see where the time is going. Yeah.
And this is a good reminder for me, Gwen, too, because as much as I'm organized, I don't block out time. And I know that would increase my efficiency. So starting from this talk, I'm going to start blocking out time. It's something I've procrastinated on for 10 years. I know it's something I need to develop, but I just never did. But I'm at this point right now where I need to do it because I got a lot of stuff going on too. So if there's, there's so many takeaways for viewers, but my main takeaways, I would start blocking. I might even like on one of my channels keep track of this journey of like blocking out time.
Yeah, man, you should do like a screen share of your Google Calendar.
Yeah.
So what maybe would be a good video would be like 1 week, just track where you're doing.
Yeah.
So then you could see like how much time you're spending on Netflix. Like I spend way too much on Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus and HBO Max and all the things, right? And then how much time you're spending on social media, not like creating or growing, but just browsing and like falling into the rabbit hole of like everyone's content. And if you limit yourself, you could be like, okay, I'm only on Instagram 30 minutes in the morning to do my thing. And then maybe 30 minutes of research. We're always in research. Then you can limit that time. And so you know that you're not like spending 4 hours a day on it.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, so let's talk about the fact, okay, your husband, you guys do business together. How is that? I'm always curious about that.
So I started the LA Girl before we started dating. So when we started dating, I had to have a serious conversation with him, and I had to tell him like, this is what I'm doing. If we end up together, great, then you'll be able to, get the rewards as well. But he had a great time because I would always get invited to events. I got invited to like dinners where like John Legend was playing, and like I've been able to go on sponsored trips where he gets to go.
Wow.
So I had to give him like a serious talking to, like, this is my business, this is my project, I'm going to be doing this for life and hopefully full time as my business. And then he is a software developer, so he helped me with my blog, and I got free tech, which is great. And then I taught him how to take photos for me so that he could take photos while we're traveling together. So I did train him to become an Instagram husband.
Nice.
But we were able to like go to Hawaii for free. We were able to go to different places and stay at the Four Seasons for free.
Wow.
So we do a bunch of free stuff, but I tell him like nothing's free, right? There's work involved.
Of course.
We got to take photos. We got to tweet stuff out. We have to post stories. So I had to tell him that it's not about just me taking photos or documenting all the time. It's work. We're working. And so once he understood that, then he realized there was one story that I always tell. We were eating dinner, and it was like a sponsored dinner. And then of course we're eating, and I have to take photos each entree so I could put it on my stories. And then when the dessert came, I usually put my phone away because I'm not on my phone the whole time. I just take a photo and put it away, and then I'll post it later. When the dessert came, I was getting it, and then I would look, and I was like, the cheesecake has a bite in it. Like, who did that? And I'm like, And then this is like really early on, and I'm like, you're not allowed to eat the cake until I take a picture because that's my job. And so now he knows that he's not allowed to eat it yet. But it is a learning process for people who are not content creators that like you kind of need to have everything nicely put out so you can take a photo or video, like do a little clip, right? So yeah.
It sounds like you guys are very complimentary in what you do. And I think a great lesson from that is, I think, especially for entrepreneurs, whoever you date, whoever you end up with has to understand that. Like, there's something else, okay? You're important, but I got something else too. So best case scenario, we can both work on it together, but it's like you have to make that clear. And I guess I'm the same. Like, I usually tell people, look, there's something, for me, it's like God's important. But besides that, there's like what I'm doing, my little hustle. So like, you have to understand that. And, it's surprising. Like, even family members are like, yo, yeah, you're gonna treat your YouTube channel better than your girl. I'm like, it could be.
Yeah. So he used to get so embarrassed when I would get on top of a chair at a restaurant to take like a nice overhead shot. But I'm sure like sometimes you have to do what you have to do to get the shot. And there are some people who are gonna be like, what is this person doing? But I said, like, this is my job. I get paid for this. Like, this is not a laughing matter. This is a serious matter. Like, you don't make fun of like a reporter trying to like, capture something that people need to see on TV. And that's how I treat it. Like, this is a show, and we need to, I need to capture that content. And now that he sees that we're monetizing and making that money, and now he's like, oh, okay, now I get it. And
I want to segue and explain to viewers too the importance of having good mentorship, good guidance when you first start out. And I think that's why Gwen's company is so good, because here's the honest truth about my brand building. I did it wrong for so many years. Like, I did it wrong for at least 3 years. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring Gwen on this new channel, because I realized that if I had guidance, I probably would have did it right for I would have gotten there in a shorter period of time. I would be different now. And, and I think that's where the segue is. Like, okay, so if someone is thinking about being an entrepreneur or being an influencer, I mean, besides hitting you up, Gwen, and like asking you for advice and paying for your services, what else can they do? What are some like important things they have to think about, especially in the influencer realm?
Well, first of all, Jerry, I love that you acknowledge that, because a lot of people won't acknowledge that, they should have done this, or like it would have been faster. And sometimes like we get into that mode, right? Like we're trying not to spend money, or we don't want to kind of ask for help because we say we could do it all. Mm-hmm. But if we could do it all, like there's so much free stuff on YouTube and Google, then everyone would be a billionaire by now, right? But we're not, because there's one part is action, is information and learning, and the other part is implementation and action. Yeah. And that's really where we need help. Is we get all this info and then we don't know what to do with it, or it's all jumbled up in our head and we're like, how do we do this? How do we do that? But how about that? And there's no one to answer those questions unless you do find a mentor or a coach, or do a program, or do a course. And I'm a big believer in online courses and programs, because I took them all when I started my membership community, because I didn't know how to do that. I was a marketer. I did classes. I taught at YouTube. I did classes there in person, but I was like answering the same questions over and over again. I was like, how do I cut my time and replicate myself? I should record these and create a course or some sort of program so people can watch it on their own time and get that information, and then build in the community and the support so that they can ask me questions. So that's how I built out my membership. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't enroll in programs myself. So as an educator and as a coach, I believe in, I want the shortcut. So what do? You buy or you learn from someone who's done it already, right? So if someone already has been doing it for 5 years and I just started today, they can probably cut me a year or two of time. Yeah. And that's the thing. People don't understand that, I'm going to do it on my own. But like, imagine how much money you saved when you save like 2 to 3 years of trying to figure it out yourself. Yeah. And so for me, if you were just starting out, what I like to do is I do look at their free stuff. So that usually coaches and mentors have podcasts, or they have books, or they have free videos online. They have YouTube channels, they have Instagrams. So I usually look at their stuff, but then I decide who I want to work with. And so I've worked with like over 10 coaches in the last 3 years, but that's also why I've been able to build like a $500,000 business right now. And if I had waited, then it would have taken a lot longer. And a lot of people are asking us like, oh, how did you go so fast? And I was like, I was willing to invest, because I don't want to make the mistakes. If I can avoid, all those mistakes and lessons that people have already learned by learning from them, I would rather go faster instead of trying to figure it out on my own.
Yeah, exactly. And I will add to that it's okay to pay a little bit for a service, because, for example, like, if I were to get help on my Instagram with Gwen, I wouldn't want to just ask her advice for free. I mean, she worked hard at this, right? I would feel bad. And I think that's something I want to talk to people who want to be influencers. I get people who like hit me up all the time asking questions. And I literally have to tell them, look, there are some close friends of mine, like my roommate, Rob, who I'll help them anytime. But that's like a small circle. Everyone else, my advice is not free, because this is knowledge that I worked at. And some people don't get it. Like, I tell them that, and then 2 days later, they'll ask me for advice again. And I literally, it's like, but like, you have to respect that, Gwen's a teacher. Gwen can teach you at certain things. So like, when you go approach that as like, okay, I'm getting a service from her that she worked hard at. She's got the knowledge. That's why it's okay to pay a little. I think that's so important.
Yeah, no, I just posted something on Instagram about this. Like, I get so many friends, or even like random Facebook friends or people that are like DMing me questions that, like, it's not a quick question.
Yeah.
This is, I have recorded tons of hours of training on how to grow your Instagram, how to get engagement. And people are like DMing me thinking I'm just going to give them a magic statement that's going to solve their problem.
Yeah.
Like, one, it's not a quick question. It's actually hours of strategy and work that I've seen and developed from all my years of experience, like you said. And so now what I do, I basically say, if you need help, here's a link to book a call, and you can pay for a call if you want to buy consulting. And yeah, there are friends that I help for free, but that's volunteer work. Like, we get to decide who we want to help and mentor for free. But also, we only have how many hours a day. If all we did was help everyone for free, then we wouldn't be able to eat. Yeah. Right? We wouldn't be able, it's not a business if it doesn't make money. It's just, I always tell people this, like, do you go to the hair salon and expect a free haircut? No, you pay for the service. And do you expect like a plumber to do stuff for free? No, you pay for the service. And so another thing that one of my coaches told me is, like, even if we did give them free information, they probably won't do anything with it. Exactly. Because if the quote that he says is, if you don't pay attention, right? If someone gives you some free action or a free action step, you're probably not going to do it because you didn't pay for it. You have no skin in the game. You didn't invest. Yeah. But let's say I gave a class and I told you it was a $5,000 class. Wouldn't you show up and you paid? Wouldn't you show up paying attention because you paid $5,000 for that information? Yeah. And if what I told you led to a $1 million idea or saved you 5 years of time, wouldn't it be worth $5,000?
Yeah, exactly. So important, man. And talking about time, how time is limited, Gwen, why don't we go through like a day in the life of Gwen? Do you still wake up at 5, or has that been a little better since now you don't have a day job per se? Your day job is your own hustles.
Now I wake up at 4, just kidding. No, I think that people think like just because you don't have a day job that you're free. I mean, like, I think as much as I want to say like we're on the way to building that kind of lifestyle, but I think the first 5 to 10 years is probably still going to be a hustle. Yeah. I don't know any business that just is in the first 5 years where the CEO is off on a beach all the time. Yeah. I think that can happen, maybe after 5 years, once you have enough revenue to build a team, because then you replicate yourself with the team and you delegate to the team. But in the beginning, I have there's none in my mind. And look at any entrepreneur's journey. No one's at the beach 24/7 in the first 5 years, unfortunately, right? Unless your revenue is so great that you could start hiring. We're starting to hire now, where this is year 3 for me. So I have more free time now, but I also have new projects and new programs and new things I want to do. So I'm super passionate about my job. I love waking up. I wake up thinking of ideas and thinking of serving my students and like, oh, I need to make sure that email goes out because we have like a mindset call tonight, because we do mindset coaching inside my membership. So we get up around 6 a.m. We walk our dog. We have a 12-year-old Pomeranian who we rescued when he was 8. And then I usually work all morning, like straight from like 9 to 12. And before I work, I do my morning routine, which is super sacred to me. I do meditation in the morning, like 10 minutes. I use a Calm app. And then I look at my vision book. And a vision book is something kind of like a vision board, but it's like written version. And I wrote down like journal entries as if it was like 10 years later. So it's like, hey, it's 2021. I'm a billionaire and we live in a beautiful house and all the things that you want. Like, and I read that every day as if it already happened. So that's kind of like my visualization exercise. And I also do journaling. I do some gratitude journaling, 3 things I'm grateful for. I write down what I'm excited about. And this just gets me into the mental headspace of like it's an awesome day. And when I don't do this, I notice like it's not an awesome day or not as awesome a day. So I do have that morning ritual. And then I get to work, and usually it's either meetings or podcast interviews. I'm working on customer stuff, helping our members, planning our next session or something like that. It really depends on the day. I do love that I get to plan my day however I need to. So if like I want to take the day off, I can. If I want to take the afternoon off, I can. If I just want to catch up with friends, I can. So I do love that freedom. But I still am working a lot. And I think most entrepreneurs, they love their work. And so we're naturally just like, I love my work, and I don't see myself fully removing myself from it.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the most important things, I actually just lost my train of thought too, but that's why we have editing software later. Yeah, I literally lost my train of thought. It's so weird. I was like starting to say it, and then yeah. Let me think about what I was trying to say. Maybe it's the coffee crash. I guess that's the coffee.
Was it like a morning routine or?
Yes.
Okay.
Morning routine. So, I took a positive psychology course in college, and they actually had an exercise, very interestingly, where you write either a biography or like a journal entry from years down in the future. So it's like a lot of people who aren't familiar with some of the stuff might be like, oh, this is all like a new agey type of stuff. No, There's actual like psychology kind of like studies that are kind of like showing what Gwen's doing. Like I remember that in positive psychology, a specific exercise exactly like what she's saying.
Well, it's like athletes, right? They have to imagine getting the gold medal and having it go around their neck and like crossing the finish line. Yeah. Because if you don't believe you can do it, or you don't see yourself doing it, it's not going to happen. Yeah. Like your reality can only go as far as your beliefs. Yeah. So if you don't believe it and you don't see it, and you constantly remind your mind that sometimes, our mind gets the best of us by giving us that negativity and that doubt and that insecurity. So you kind of have to make sure that you put in those positive affirmations and those positive visualizations. Like, this is where we're going, and this is why I'm motivated to take action today, because this is where I'm going.
Yeah. It's pretty funny because for me, my biggest channel is on martial arts, right? And I started that channel because I had this vision that one day I like get back into training a lot. That was my vision. And it happened because the channel started taking off, and then I started training in martial arts. I took a big long break in martial arts before that channel. But it's like, it's really powerful because it's like whenever you feel lost as an entrepreneur, sometimes having images, having like non kind of logical, like verbal cues is so important, because, when your lost emotions are hitting you, sometimes it's hard to process and like, reason with it, right? You need other emotions. You need other non kind of logical things to kind of recenter yourself. And that's another reason to have like these, manifest these things, so to speak.
Yes, so true. So yeah, I'm very, they call it woo, or they call it woo-woo, or like new age, like you said. I'm all about that, because that stuff has helped me kind of, combat the negative thoughts. Like, yeah. And I don't know how far you want to get into this, but, we all know that the brain is all about survival, right? Yeah. All those fears that we have about, oh, if I put myself out there, they may not like it, or what they're going to judge me. Those are all survival mechanisms that are built into biology. But what we need to realize is that the brain and the mind are two different things, right? And our mind can control the brain if we build that muscle. And so it's up to us to keep saying, no, there are people that need to hear my story. No, there are people that want to, even though they're haters, there are people who are going to be positively impacted by my video and my content. And so you kind of have to have that conversation with yourself and decide which is it going to be, the brain or the mind. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So Gwen, what is next? I mean, you mentioned that you're probably going to start hiring and everything. What is next in your brand? You're going to build a new brand, or is it just these two are okay for now?
Right. So I still run the LA Girl, not as much as I used to. I do some brand deals when some brands reach out and it makes sense for me. I only work with brands that I love and that I stand behind. But my main focus is the Spark School. And like I'm still an influencer, but I'm a coach, a business coach, and a teacher and a mentor first and foremost. And so my membership, we launched it 2 years ago. This is 2.5 years, and we have just about 750 members right now in the membership. And so our goal is to, of course, get to 1,000 members and possibly 2,000, 3,000 or more by the end of the year. So really supporting my members, making sure they have access to the coaching, and then always updating, refreshing my courses so that they're up to date, because a lot of them are like on Instagram, a lot of them are how to pitch to brands, and then also how to come up with an effective and strategic content plan so that like you're not always like, what am I going to post today? And putting them in the mindset of having an editorial calendar and a publishing schedule, so that makes growth and monetization easier. And so right now I just hired my first full-time employee, and we're hiring more people to help support our customers. And we're working on advertising and sales. Right now, that's kind of the thing that we're focused on the most. We've also developed, my husband has helped develop some software tools to help people with, for example, hashtags. We created an app called Hashtag Hacker, and it helps my students optimize their hashtags instead of trying to manually look it up every single post. So we've developed apps like that. So we have kind of evolved a little bit into a software company, which we may or may not be available for people that are not influencers, because a lot of random people, like small businesses and other people, need that too. And also we might start helping brands or businesses who are like, we want to use influencer marketing. We don't have a big budget. How do we work with like all levels of influencers? They're not like Fortune 500 brands that can spend like $1 million a post or whatever, but there are all levels of influencers and all sizes of brands that can still use influencer marketing to promote their products and services. So I've gotten some clients that I've been able to help maybe on a consulting basis and a one-on-one basis, but I have been getting requests for a program on like, how do you find influencers? How do you know which ones are legit? How much do you pay them? How do you reach out? And so it's like the other side of influencer marketing. Right now I teach influencers how to work with brands, and now brands are asking me how to work with influencers. So it looks like there's a lot of new stuff that's coming up.
Yeah, it sounds very exciting, all the different avenues that you are going down. And I guess, since we're talking about it, for people who want to be influencers, I think they've already learned a lot from this. But what is another kind of like quick piece of advice for like people who want to be influencers? What is like a common misconception? Now we talked about how it's a lot of work and stuff. That I think if they paid attention to this talk, they already know. But what's another like common misconception of people who want to be influencers? Like, how would they reach out to companies and stuff like that? I think a lot of influencers probably don't know how to bridge that gap right now.
Yeah, that's why I have a business.
Yeah.
So one big misconception, the biggest one that I always get is like people think they need to have a certain amount of followers to monetize. So that's like the biggest one. Some people are like, oh, I'll never get there because I'll never get 100,000 followers. Well, newsflash, you don't need 100,000 followers to monetize. In fact, I've proven that you don't even need 10,000 followers to monetize. So my students have had paid brand deals with less than 1,000 followers. So it has nothing to do sometimes with the amount of followers you have, but more about the type of content you create. Because if you can create a beautiful photo or a set of photos or video for a brand, the brand is willing to pay for content. They pay people to create content for the brand. So if they can have a customer or a fan of the brand create content, basically you're not selling just your audience, but you're selling the quality and the actual content that they can reuse in their social media channels, instead of them hiring a whole production company to create a whole shoot, but find a model that's just holding up their product inauthentically with no endorsement. They can actually find a real fan, a real life person with a personality and however many followers they have that is using their product in like a natural, real way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so when I want you to stop thinking about it, if you are interested in doing this as like, oh, I don't have enough followers. No, that is a complete like myth that there's people out there. And I want to switch that up because I know people, I have students that have 100,000 followers that haven't made any money. They just get free stuff. They get some free makeup, some free shirts and stuff, but like they haven't monetized because they themselves also haven't positioned themselves as a business where they're charging the prices that they should be charging. So I have a student of mine, she's making about $1,000 a month in brand deals and she has 7,000 followers.
Wow.
And why is because she asked for it. She asked for the money. Part of it is like people say, okay, I'll take free stuff. And then it's like, and then what? Like that's not a business, that's a hobby. Yeah. And then two, like if they offer you some money, then be prepared to negotiate, right? You should be like, okay, if they're offering you $50, make it a bigger package and ask for $300 and be like, I'll do 3 posts for $500. So there's an art to the communication, of course, and the packaging. That's my bread and butter. That's kind of what I teach is how to create that and how to present yourself and how to communicate. So then you can charge more than they're offering.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it, man. I think, from kind of my understanding of a lot of influencers, they get so happy when they start getting stuff that they forget that you're actually worth more than that. Don't just accept the free stuff. Be like, oh my God, be like, no, I'll give you another video if you give me 100, like do exactly. I mean, Gwen's going to teach you how to do it better. But the whole point is don't underestimate yourself and also know that whatever you agree to that's presented by the other side, it's probably a low ball of you, right? That's part of business.
Yes, my saying is there's always a budget. Yeah. For people who say there's no budget, I don't believe it. There's always a budget. And we know this. We've worked with big companies. If they want the money, they'll take the money from somewhere. The budget's there. Maybe it's in Facebook ads, or maybe it's in TV, maybe it's in radio, and you're gonna be like, that's extinct. So you guys should be putting that money into influencers because guess what? Where people are right now, they're on Instagram, they're on YouTube, they're not watching TV anymore. So take that money from TV and put it into influencer marketing where I will endorse your product, right? And so I always believe that 1, there's always a budget. 2, that number is always the lowest number. Sometimes like they ask me my rate, and when they say yes right away, I know that I should have asked for more.
And then I think from the brand angle, this is something I want to express to brands. Like what Gwen said earlier about the fact that don't just look at the quantity is so important. I always tell the story. When I was working in ByteDance, we had an app called Top Buzz. Top Buzz was like a kind of like an entertainment news app that the ByteDance was trying to build in America. And so we worked with some big YouTubers too. But what I found was exactly the case about quality versus quantity. Some guy with 3 million subscribers doesn't mean the video he creates is superior. And it doesn't even mean that he can drive all those 3 million subscribers to whatever you're trying to do. But some girl with 300,000 might make a cooler video and her audience is more dedicated. So I started seeing that nuance. So brands out there, if you are looking for lessons, think about that. Don't I think the word is skim out. Don't skim out on like taking a chance, or it's not even a chance. It's a calculated risk on someone that's smaller, because like Gwen said, that person could be quality. The fans could be more loyal. You never know.
Yeah, and what we found on social media is that higher your following, the lower your engagement is anyway. And so that's why they're calling them now micro influencers and even nano influencers with less than 10,000 followers are actually getting paid brand deals, because brands would rather pay them than someone who has 1 million followers, but it's not the right audience. Sometimes people follow people just for looks or because they're sexy and whatever, but they're never going to buy the products.
Yeah.
And so the connection and the engagement with the smaller influencers are sometimes worth more than hiring a bigger mega influencer.
Yeah, that is so important. And the last thing I wanted to mention was metrics too. I think for influencers especially, it's important to have a little bit of metrics too. It's another way to like guide you in those days when you wake up and you don't know what you're doing. Like I love certain metrics that Gwen kind of explained. You know, right now her company, 750 members, right? I want to grow it to 1,000. That's a good little metric to kind of, for an entrepreneur, have a few. Don't have too many that your mind goes crazy, but like have a few. And like I personally, I had to like examine my metrics because for a while, one of the reasons why my fight commentary channel was growing so much is because I had the right metrics, which is like, it should always reach at least 10% of the subscribers. So like it was easy when I had 10,000 subscribers because 10% of that's 1,000. Reaching 1,000 is not that hard, right? So like the channel grew, and it probably, YouTube has some similar algorithmic kind of metric for it. So now I have 131,000 subscribers on Fight Commentary Breakdowns, but I'm not reaching 10% always. And I realized, okay, that's gonna mess up my brand. You know, if you got that many subscribers and your videos only get 1,000, which 2 years ago was okay, that's not okay now. So like I really had to like be like, okay, let's stick to this 10% reach. It's got to reach at least 10% of my subscribers. And now that I'm bigger, I can't judge myself from the 2018 standards. It's got to be like a video has to reach at least 13,000 views or I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah, no, exactly. Analytics are everything. As a marketer, that is my background. So I'm all about data and analytics. And so when I teach my students to create a influencer portfolio, which has like their media kit, their rate card, and case studies to kind of present themselves to brands, they have their analytics and data on there. So they can put in their stats of followers, engagement rate, impressions, reach, all of that stuff so that it's easy for the brand to say yes. Because when you present yourself that way, kind of like, you know, an architect would show you, you know, previous work or like their previous drawings, or an artist shows you their portfolio, you become more legit and more like, oh, this person knows what they're doing and this person presents themselves a different way. Like, who are you going to hire? Someone that doesn't give you a portfolio or someone that does? And not just a media kit. A lot of influencers thinks all you need is a media kit. I always have a rate card because it means you charge money, right? And if you have no prices, they're going to assume it's free. So I want you to show them that you have a price sheet because you charge for your services, and so that it's clear to them that you're a business.
Wow. Such great, awesome lessons, man. And guys, I will have links to Gwen's Spark School and LA Girl and #hacker. So those will be in the description and the pinned comments. So this was Gwen Lane. Gwen, if they wanted to get, if brands or influencers, aspiring influencers and existing influencers, if they want to get in touch with you, is the quickest way just to visit the website and then like message you? Okay.
Yes, visit the website, message me on Instagram. I do have a free workshop for influencers. It's like a 60-minute workshop that walks you through the entire process. I tell everyone to take it just because it explains like, how do you get from, you know, 0 to monetize or 0 to brand deals, whether or not you have a large following or not. And so I think that's the best place to start. I also have a podcast with lots of free episodes on, you know, the do's and don'ts of working for free, or how do you attract brands so they reach out to you if you don't want to pitch to them, and what should you do even before you pitch. I'm all about like the pre-work before you even pitch to brands. Like I'm not all about that cold calling. I like to create relationships first so they know who you are, and it's not just like, hey, pay me. Like, no one likes that, right? So I have a ton of free resources on my website, and yeah, if you want to if you're interested in joining the Spark Society, just take the free class and you'll learn more about it in there.
Wow, awesome. So Gwen, thank you again. And for viewers, leave your questions. Potentially we can bring Gwen back in the future, maybe answer some of the questions or talk about other stuff. So again, Gwen, this was so cool. Thank you so much, man.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Definitely. So guys, this was Jerry Learns Business, and this was Gwen Lane from the Spark School and LA Girl and #hacker.